Hi fellas! So, last weekend I was at NERCon in Linköping, which is the biggest convention in Sweden for stuff like anime and cosplay and Eastern Asian influenced culture in general. And if you follow me on any of my social media, Twitter or Facebook, you know that I did not have a good time. But this isn't gonna be a NERCon-centric vlog, but it relates kind of to the convention. There's this thing where whenever trans people point out that they're being misgendered or treated badly, rather than being like met as victims and like getting sympathy, some people will accuse us of not doing enough to stop it, as if we're the ones doing wrong. At NERCon, I was misgendered a lot. Now, NERCon has a policy, and they've trained their staff to be gender neutral. This is, I think, common practice these days at conventions, because they do it at the local convention, Farrakhan, as well. And yet, despite them being trained and having a policy that we're gender neutral, you don't have to worry, we're a trans-safe space, I was never once referred to as a they, or any other neutral term, or, for that matter, any female terms. It was always that man, it was always he, it was always him, and that hurt a lot. I can't think of a single time where I actually got... Because, you start noticing it after a while, so you start actually, paying extra attention when they're talking about you. Be it that the person in the cafeteria is describing who's having the next order to another person working there, or whatever. And I don't think I ever was given the neutral treatment as one should. And it isn't hard to give, I should point out. I've worked at a cafe, I've worked at conventions, I've worked at festivals. Staying neutral isn't hard. But, I wrote about this on my blog, andrearitsu.wordpress.com, and it was a list of a bunch of other things that I went through at the convention that I didn't like. And one of these things was the aforementioned misgendering, and how it seemed that NERCON's policy on trans safety was basically just, for show. And I got the response that, yes, the staff was indeed trained to be gender neutral, and if they weren't, then they're assholes. However, I should specifically have reported them and said, hey, these people weren't neutral against me, in order to properly get it done with, rather than just rant about it afterwards. And, in theory, I understand that that's a great solution, but that's not really how people work. Allow me to explain. There's a thing that happens when you get misgendered, generally, where you get discouraged, first of all. When someone refers to me as a man, when someone uses he or him pronouns, I feel like I'm being erased. The me, that's the actual me, doesn't exist to this person who is saying this. To them, I'm some random, unspecified man, which is not me. And, like I said, you get discouraged, you feel bad, and the last thing you want to do is talk to anyone, is bring it up with anyone, or to even be there. You want to get out of there, and you just want to shrink back and disappear for a while. Because you feel like your identity has been erased. And it sucks. It hurts. And it's really, really not easy to deal with. Especially when it comes in an avalanche of it happens here, then it happens here, then it happens here, then it happens here, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Not only is it hard to find the person in charge of said people at a convention when you're already feeling discouraged and already having a bad time, let me add that, but chances are you're going to have to ask who this person is, which means you're going to have to talk to the person who likely misgendered you. It shouldn't be necessary in the first place, because if the staff is really not training this, if the staff actually cares about this, why aren't they noticing when other people are doing it? And this is a common thing I see whenever someone misgenders someone else, is people who do know the gender of the person being misgendered staying silent. It's such a common thing Well, like, let's say you have 3 people around the table, a trans woman and 2 cis whatever, and the trans woman is called a man by a person who doesn't know that the trans woman is a woman, and then the other cis person who do knows that the trans woman is a woman will just go like, whereas the trans woman, if they're not too discouraged, if they're strong-willed, will probably say, actually I'm a woman, or actually it's she, it's her. Or if they're non-binary, they will say, oh, it's they, them. Or in Swedish we have hen, which is a third non-gendered pronoun, apart from our equivalents of he and she. That's a good case scenario, and while those scenarios can happen, and I think most trans people who have been misgendered have at some point corrected someone and had that work, gotten an apology, and then now gets the proper pronouns or whatever. Like, yes, that happens. But it doesn't always happen. And the idea that it's our fault for either not presenting enough like our supposed gender, or that it's our fault because we're in an environment where a lot of people cross-dress, and therefore it's not odd to assume that everyone's a cross-dresser or something. That was a strange one. Like, no. What I'm trying to say is stop treating misgendering as a small thing, and stop telling trans women that it's their fault for not doing enough about it, that it happens. Because no, we shouldn't have to. Just be neutral. Please. If you're professional, be neutral. That should be a given at this point. Anyway, I just wanted to get that rant out of my system. If you like my content, as always, you can like the content, subscribe, check out my Patreon, and all that fun stuff. I might be doing more vlogs from here on because, I don't know, maybe it's good to rant my thoughts off on camera rather than do it in a random Let's Play video where people won't actually listen to it to care about it. So yeah. I got nice legs.